Welcome to ND and Me, a podcast to share NDers' lived experiences.
Hi, Caragh. Thanks for joining me. Did you want to introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners?
Yes. So my name is Caragh McMurtry. I am a former Olympic rower. I was on the Great Britain rowing team for 10 years, and I'm also autistic. So I was diagnosed as autistic quite late in my career. And before that, I actually had a misdiagnosis of bipolar disorder, and I was mismedicated for that for 5 years whilst I was still training, racing, competing at an international level. So I was taking like lithium, lamotrigine, quetiapine, and so they're like mood stabilizers and antipsychotics, which in retrospect is pretty frustrating because it's just autistic. But I think there's a scary amount of autistic people, especially women, but men too, that are diagnosed as bipolar or borderline personality disorder. And actually it's just a misunderstanding on both parts. But yeah, I think my innate neurodivergent strengths are what made me good at sport. So I didn't get into rowing through the traditional route. I came from a state school background. Started rowing through an outreach project. It was very much my own journey. So my parents weren't very sporty. They didn't take me to the club. It was just I went there myself. Got really obsessed. Was quite a good junior and under 23 athlete. So I went to the junior and under 23 world championships and medaled. But it was when I kind of was brought into a centralized system that was very rigid, not very understanding of difference, really trying to bring everyone into one place, that I really struggled, and I didn't feel that I could utilize any of my strengths. And yeah, that's where I really suffered, and that's what led to the misdiagnosis. And since retiring, I founded an organization called Neurodiverse Sport, which has really, really picked up, which is amazing. So it's only been a year, and already I'm like in conversation with UK Sport, working with the UK Sports Institute. Some quite considerable organisations are kind of perking their ears up. We get emails and having conversations with like some quite big football teams, and I think it's because there are a lot of neurodivergent athletes out there, because neurodivergence, I think, makes you good at sport. I think if you look up like the diagnosis of autism or ADHD, like a lot of those traits are like lend themselves to being a good athlete. The problem is that these talented people come into sport, and then often I guess the sports aren't very understanding of the kind of quirks, as you might say, and then they end up having either a terrible time and kind of getting churned up and spat out, or they're the lucky ones who have very understanding coaches and they end up being, you know, the best in the world. Like some of the world's greatest athletes are neurodivergent. But I'd say there's also, I just wanted to say that there's also a bit of like a community element to neurodiverse sport as well. It's not just about the elite space, even though that's my passion and that's where I've come from. I appreciate that not everyone wants to get to that stage, and a lot of neurodivergent people just want to be active and enjoy sport and enjoy the social element of sport, and they don't feel able to do that because sports clubs, teams and clubs aren't understanding. So although I'm kind of like working at the top end to make change, I'm really hoping that will drip down, provide role models, not just for sports people or neurodivergent people, but for organizations and smaller teams and clubs. So yeah, that's me and neurodiverse sport in a nutshell.
Okay, one question.
Mm-hmm.
Oxford or Cambridge?
Me?
No, for the boat race.
Oh, I thought you were paying me a compliment.
What?
I was
Why?
like, did I come across that intelligent? Like, wow, please stop
Just-
it.
I
Didn't
went
go
to a
to
state
either,
school.
actually.
I'm an Olympic level rower, and I also went to one of the best universities in
I
the
didn't.
world.
I didn't.
No, I'm just saying that you're a rower, so you must follow rowing, and the boat race is really big. So who are you backing in the boat race?
No, I'm going to be that person, and I don't really agree with the boat race. I don't know. I'm just. It's quite elitist. Sorry. Sorry.
I agree.
Sorry, not sorry. Like, it's there was a time and a place for it, but it's yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I don't want to get into too much trouble.
So you're Hampshire born and bred.
Hampshire?
Are you still down there, or are you elsewhere in the country?
No, so I'm in Oxfordshire now. But I do often go down there. So my sister still lives there. She's just had a baby. So do make frequent trips, and my grandparents are there as well. My parents actually live in Ireland now. So kind of dispersed a bit. But yeah, there's something about your hometown, which even though it's I don't want to swear on
Interesting
your
place.
it's an
You can swear. I'll just
Southampton-
mark it not for kids.
Southampton is an interesting place. So my row club was, if you're familiar with Southampton, was in Northam, which is just outside the town centre. That's quite a rough area. I lived just over the bridge from that, and I lived in Woolston, also not the nicest area, but there's something about what's familiar to you that's just, I don't know, I go there and I'm like, oh, it's home, even though like it stinks of like the river just stinks, the tide goes down and it smells like really eggy. And like there's always like a poo barge that goes along to like the sewage plant, and like there's like a scrap heap next to my rowing club, and I'd always have to walk past all the docks and everything, and the it's like a gravel pit or something like that. But I'm like, oh yes, it's home. I love it.
So what made you move to Oxfordshire?
Well, because where I got good at rowing and got obsessed with it and was like, oh, I could really do something with this. I kind of tailored my education around it. So I chose to go to Reading University because that was next to the National Training Centre. So yeah, that was pretty much why. Just my life revolved around rowing. It was my special interest, and that is exactly why I am where I am now.
So do you still row for exercise and pleasure, or have you thrown in the towel?
Absolutely not. My body is thrown in the towel. Also, I don't want to like bring the mood down from the start, but I think when you've been through something that's really tough, it's kind of what I was alluding to at the start. Like I definitely lost my love for it. Like the thing that was my lifeline, slowly but surely,
Ebbed away.
And that did leave me in a very vulnerable place. But luckily, I've kind of developed other things from there. But yes, there's two reasons. One is that my body has been destroyed. I think partly because with my autism, one of the ways it presents for me is that I'm not very good at like communicating my pain. So I think for a long time, sorry, cat hair. For a long time, I felt like I was kind of screaming about like a number of injuries, and apparently I wasn't. And so like now I'm like crippled. I can't even run. So I'm trying to do something about that. Probably I'm gonna have to have surgery. But like even if the dog runs away, I'm like, so partly that reason, and then the other reason is that, yeah, like kind of my love for it got steamrolled. But I do still exercise every day. So I'm like well into Zwift at the moment, always on Zwift. do like body weights and stuff. If I could run, I would run. Like last year I was doing like 3-hour runs and stuff just because I've just got that something that just needs to just push it over the edge all the time. But yeah.
The only thing I run for is the train.
When you're late. Because I'm assuming you have ADHD.
Just look, I'm never late. A wizard arrives exactly when he is supposed to.
I'm always late. I'm terrible. I was actually never late at training, but now I'm just like letting myself be me. I'm just can't.
No, I'm frequently very early. I'd much rather sit in a car park for an hour to make sure I'm not late than be a minute late. So yeah, I'm driving for work on Wednesday. I need to be there for 11:30. It's a 2-hour drive. I'm going to leave at 8. Why? Well, because the M25 is the M25, and it might actually take me 3 hours. And then I'll stop off at the services and get breakfast, and then I'll only be 10 minutes away from where I need to be, and then I'll be there.
See, that's sensible. I don't do that. I'm like, how much can I make out? How efficient and how many jobs could I do this morning?
Are you the type of person that looks at Google's estimated time of arrival and then races it?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, Google says this is an hour. No,
it's almost like I like the thrill. I must like it because even though it's like uncomfortable at the time, I keep doing it to myself. I never learn my lesson. And like the thrill that you get when you have made it and you've like won the battle against time. Do you know what I mean? When you've like, I fitted. I should only really be able to fit 10 things in, and I fitted 20 in. And I feel like the greatest person on earth kind of outweighs when it doesn't work.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever felt like the greatest person on earth, but I'm not a former Olympian.
Oh, did I tell you that I was misdiagnosed as bipolar and I'm doing?
Well, the scary thing is that my nephew was diagnosed autistic at 3. I told my parents that I was getting a diagnosis for ADHD. You're not ADHD. So, okay, let's just hold this thought for a second. Within the family of my parents, my sister, and our siblings, and our sproglets, we already have depression, bipolar.
So true.
And you think I'm borderline, BPD, OCD. Dad is so socially inept. It's not even. It's quite sad how socially inept he is. And I'm like, and you're definitely sure there's no tisms or stuff going on. No. Yeah.
It is very familiar. Yeah. Like you see, yeah. But then again, like, gosh, I went down a rabbit hole the other day and I started reading about evolutionary psychiatry, I think. And because I was like, well, if it's this disease that needs to be eradicated, which obviously like people are starting to move away from as autistic people with ADHD, other neurodivergent conditions are self-advocating. I was like, if it is this disease, then why is it so common? Like, and yeah, like it's actually quite, I would recommend kind of looking at the evolutionary model of neurodivergence because it's really quite affirming. Because even, I have to say, what really did surprise me was bipolar and schizophrenia. There is like a positive reason for those as well, and those people may have been incredibly useful and even revered in the kind of the tribal.
And who was I listening to? It was somebody on Rogan's podcast. It might have been Andrew Huberman, talking about psychopathy and how actually in tribal barbarian states you do need some people that can just do horrific things and then switch off.
It's true. Like there's a reason for, like, I think I can't remember. I think it's what was it I read the other day? It's like, in terms of the amount of time that humans have been in existence, say we've been in existence for 24 hours, I think modern civilization as we know it has been, I think it was something like
a second.
30, it was like 37 seconds.
Yeah.
And then in terms of like ultra modern civilization, like now, it's been like 0.2 of a second. Yeah. So there's no wonder like our brains haven't caught up. Like our brains are still, like, we lived as
24 hours old.
We lived as hunter-gatherers for so long. So it like makes a lot of sense to me. And I think when you're made to feel so different and so broken and so weird, like looking at something like that makes you feel like, that makes sense, like I do have a place.
There's a reason behind it.
Yeah, there's a reason why I'm like this, is quite reassuring, comforting, makes you stop tearing yourself apart.
So I watched a social anthropologist for his thesis. He put together a mini series called Wired for the Stone Age, and it was little skits of basically cavemen, but in today's society. And we are cavemen, except for our caves now have heating and electricity and the internet. So there is a lot to be said about, variable attention and stimulus traits, meaning that you can, be on alert and spot that thing over there that nobody else has spotted, because that might be useful to you and your tribe, and all of this other stuff. Something else in that guise that I was looking at was generational trauma, and how hereditary trauma and trauma responses are, despite there being a difference of opinion on the link between neurodivergence and trauma. I definitely think that there's a correlation there, but maybe not causality, or maybe some very complex causality. There's a reason why my nose isn't straight. And everyone's like, your nose isn't bent, until I point it out, and I'm like, yes, it's bent, thanks. And our lived experience forms us. We wouldn't be who we are today doing what we're doing if we didn't go through the challenges that we went through. If life was easy and we were all accepted, and we never had a tough day or a tough week or a tough 5 years on the wrong medication for the wrong diagnosis, then we might not be sitting on a podcast talking about how to make the world more friendly to people who are different. I'm a big fan of saying a calm sea never made a good sailor. I think I'm a quite good sailor. Metaphorically, not really. I don't like getting wet. It's probably because I'm not a very good swimmer. And let's not relive past trauma of coming last in a swimming race by like 30 seconds.
Oh god, that's quite that's quite impressive.
When the winner gets out of the pool, walks back, and then cheers you on to finish, it's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be swimming.
I wasn't even that strong a swimmer, and I was a rower. Like, I remember I got a stress fracture in my foot from doing too much running in my first year on the national team, and so I had to do a lot of swimming training, and I literally couldn't even swim a length. And yet I had like this is kind of dangerous. Like, I had been a competitive rower for training on the river for so long. I think I had to, one of the coaches then had to like come and teach me to swim properly for training. Really good kind of training, but that was quite embarrassing. Like, I think I would just like attack the water. I was just like, it's like, that is incredibly tiring. That's why I could barely do a length.
But then you're getting like an hour's worth of swimming
performance
workout
gains.
15 meters.
I got my personal best after that stint of swimming training. Because even though I got better, I was still not. I'm not a natural. I'm not one of those athletes that just like, makes it look easy, is flowing, and I only got where I got because I just worked really, really hard. It's like all or nothing, so it's all.
Yeah.
But...
And now all or nothing behind neurodiverse sport.
Yeah.
Which has exploded in a year. So to put it into perspective, guys, I launched Lemonade August the 1st last year. And Caragh launched Neurodiverse Sport around the same time. Well, one of us is doing really well.
You're doing well, are you not? I see you around, or maybe that's just LinkedIn algorithms. I see you all the time.
Yeah.
You're one of the lucky ones that hasn't been unfollowed. I love a good unfollow. I give people chances, but if you continuously put stuff that generally it's one-sided. If it's one-sided and shutting people down and shutting conversation down, gets unfollowed.
That's lightened my day. I was having a conversation. I was having a conversation on. I can't remember who it was with. This is the problem when you have lots and lots of conversations. There definitely is like a self-perpetuating ecosphere on social media.
Yeah.
And if you feed the monster, then it grows. I had a rather tough time on social media earlier this year because I happened to suggest that policing personal speech was fascist, and then somebody
I love that.
And somebody linked me saying, hang on a second, surely we should just let people identify how they want to identify. All of a sudden turned me into an anti-Semite because Judy, the founder of Neurodiversity, is Jewish. I was like, how did you make that connection?
So what, you were saying that she should say what?
No, what I was saying was, I don't care how you identify. You can call yourself neurodivergent, neurodiverse, neurospicy, neuroatypical, neurodifferent. I don't care how you identify yourself. And if you say you're neurodivergent, you should only call yourself neurodivergent. Neurodiverse speaks to a population of people, therefore you can only call yourself neurodivergent. I think that the grammar police is fascist.
Yeah, I just think get over it. I think like you're wasting words, you're wasting energy that could be used for good. Like, look beyond someone who's dyslexic, for instance, could.
Why did that make dyslexia such a hard word to spell for people?
Yeah, I thought that as well. But like, someone who's dyslexic might use neurodiverse and neurodivergent interchangeably, even though they've been told what they mean. And if you're too hard down the line with these things, I understand that sometimes people do need to be corrected, but you can't shut people down, otherwise they'll never learn. Like, human beings don't want to be told what to do. If you take the line of, well, I'm just going to tell them what to do and they'll tell me back, like, you'll just keep hitting each other and nobody will ever give in, nobody will ever learn. You have to live in reality. The reality is that you have to get through to people. To get through to people, you have to have conversation. So I really, really do struggle with, like what you said, shutting people down and correcting people all the time. It's just a waste of time. Like, let's look at people's actual intentions. Let's not argue semantics. Let's not be pedantic about it. Like, if you're spending time correcting people on social media, like, what could you actually be doing? Go to a homeless shelter and feed people. Like, go to the clothes bank, help sort the clothes. Like, it's just
go to a school and educate children in neurodiversity, so then in 20 years' time, you're not arguing with them over the difference between.
Write a helpful, informative post that you say, "This is my opinion," like, you know.
And caveat it with my opinion, not. It's fact.
Yeah, I always try to do that. I really, really, and I hope I haven't slipped up, but I really always try to say this is my opinion, or I never say this is fact. Yeah, sorry, that got me there.
Or at least if you are going to say it's fact, cite it.
Yeah.
Go, look, research from organization say.
Wait, suggest this is fact, because I also say a lot of researchers, you can twist research however way you want it,
but then, according to this research, this thing is. And then if it's wrong, you're not wrong, the research is wrong.
Yeah.
But I've had some interesting debates with the medication shortage and all of that jazz. So we need medication. Okay, we'll go back to your analogy of the 24 hours of human existence. We've had diagnosable ADHD in adults that are medicated for far less than 0.02 of a second.
Yeah.
So what did we do for the other 23 hours?
Well, I would agree. I'd say with that,
need and benefit from are not the same thing.
Well, yeah, and also I think it's that societal thing again. So like the society as we know it, the structures as we know them, the fast pace, the demands and expectations on people have never been as much as they are now, or the way that they are now, which drives people probably to needing medication as almost like a coping mechanism. But the ideal would be that the environment changes rather than the person has to just put a plaster on it. And I always think that sport can play such an amazing role in self-management. Like if you actually look at what medication does to a person and does to a person's brain, like sport can really
exercise
afford them those benefits. Yeah. Sorry, I say sport
and having a giggle while you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's probably why I'm a grumpy old fart, because I'd rather walk to Greg's than.
I also think that there's a sport or an exercise for everyone, and it that is one thing I want to change in the future. Is like at the moment it seems very all or nothing, and if you're not into football at school, you don't get to play sport. Well, I genuinely see I see darts as a sport, because there's so much, like, you're still getting up, you're still doing something, you're using your brain, it's a communal thing. Like, table tennis is a sport. Like if you did competitive chess or competitive Rubik's cubing, like it's a sport.
So is fishing?
I guess that's a really hard one.
Look, they sell fishing equipment at Go Outdoors.
They do. Like, if you're using it positively, you're outside, you're doing something ish.
You're sitting on a riverbank with a 6-pack, waiting for tomorrow morning.
But I guess it's still like potentially a positive recreational activity. You're still afforded some of the benefits of sport. Like, you have to dress up for the weather, you have to get outside, you get fresh air, it's probably communal again, you're getting that headspace. So like, some people, unfortunately, their bodies aren't in a state where they can participate in rigorous physical activity. So potentially fishing would be a really good option for them.
As long as they park their car and carry their gear. If they parked on the bank and then they just sit there, then maybe that doesn't count.
Maybe it doesn't count, but yeah.
So, where were we going with the conversation? Because we
I don't know. We just went off piste.
Sports and stuff.
I knew this would happen as soon as I met you. As soon as you came online, I was like, oh no, we're going to be all over the place.
Well, luckily, Cara's got another meeting in half an hour, so we won't be waffling all day. How did you? What drew you to seeking a different diagnosis from your bipolar diagnosis?
Yeah, I didn't get drawn as such. I got dragged.
Okay.
So I hit a real low, and it was at an indoor event. Actually, I was, regardless of the fact that I was on all that medication, I was like still trying so hard, and I'm a very good problem solver, so I'd problem solve my way out to half decent shape. Like I was still in the squad because I was still beating some people, just because I do anything that I could, like, to make it happen. And I think I was on for like a half decent ergo, and it was the first time it was held at it was a stadium, and there was really bright lights, lots of noise, and they wanted us to like walk out and sort of do some kind of posing in front of the camera as we went out. None of that is me. But I also did not appreciate how averse to sort of like loud noises and certain lighting I am, because I did an outdoor sport. And when I went to school, didn't really have, I don't think those kind of fluorescent lights were really in, like the school was quite old. Anyway, it had never really been in my face like that. And I like totally bombed. And I wouldn't say I put two and two together, but in my, like, I was crying on my husband afterwards. We were going for a walk. I was like, I think this is the end. Like, I can't think of anything more that I could possibly do to make this work. I've tried everything. I'm covering all the 1%ers. In my incoherent ramble, I did mention the lights and I did mention the noise, but it was in amongst like a lot of other stuff because there were so many layers of complication. Because, you know, there were things like loads of daily sort of traumatic experiences of being told different things by the coaches, by the teammates, like there was so much that was kind of muddying the water. Couldn't see the wood through the trees, but I guess he picked up on that. And he'd also listened to a lady speak on the radio, which I think is also shows the power of stories. And I've kind of heard from people that they've had a similar response to my story, which makes me feel great, so worth what I'm doing. But she had talked about a misdiagnosis of bipolar that had then been changed, re-diagnosed as autism, so she was autistic. And he just thought it literally sounded like me. It sounded like my story and my problems. The fact that I was taking all this medication, been taking it for 5 years, and was just getting worse. Like, the medication is meant to make you better, and I was just getting worse, having migraines every day. Like, it was just, I was, you know, I put on loads of weight, my hair was falling out, my nails were chipping, my skin was sallow, I was like a shadow of myself. So he, along with a new performance director that had joined the team, who was very person-centered for once, he joined the team in response to someone getting fired for bullying. So I think they were really trying to change.
Let's not get into a 3-hour-long conversation about bullying in sport.
Yeah.
Welcome to my old world.
Yeah. So together we kind of formulated a plan, and this new performance director referred me. I could put all my cards on the table for once, rather than being like hiding all these things and dealing with them on my own in the background. I was like, I cannot do these gymnastics anymore. This is what's happening. Like, this is all the medication I'm taking. I have to say, I did always write it on my drug risk declaration form. Like, the doctor knew that I was taking it, but you know how it is with these kind of systems and structures, like things just go under the radar. So I was like, laid it all out there, and I was like, this is the end. I need proper help. I can't just be sent to the Priory again. That is not working. Like, I go there and I'm like, why am I here? And then I come out with another prescription for antipsychotics. I'm like, so he referred me to the UK Sport Mental Health Panel, and I was their very first client, patient, subject, whatever you call it, and they triaged me. I was very, very fortunate, very lucky, because since then it kind of dispersed a bit, because I think they got inundated and they were like, okay, we can't just have a panel for this, we need to change sport and structures on a wider scale, because they were just getting, anyway, fortunately for me, I was there at the right time, and yeah, they were the ones that re-diagnosed me, so they had to look at my medical records, which was like a huge wad. and speak to people. I hate to know what people said about me, considering, you know, the diagnosis of autism is social communication difficulties and restricted or repetitive behavior. So I'm sure people were very nice about me. And then, so they spoke, and then they obviously spoke to me. They came to my house, actually. Very nice people. And I worked with one of them after that. She was a therapist. And just really got to understand that diagnosis for me and my particular my traits, but working back from there. So not just these are the observable traits, these are your internal experiences, and then this is why, or this is what we think might be the reason. So, you know, whether it's like binary thinking, or you're very literal, or things like that, very justice driven. I think it's only when you really, and this is why diagnosis, or at least understanding, is so important, because it's only when you get past the observable characteristics, which is where a lot of people stop and where a lot of like conflict happens, to the internal experience, to the actual root cause, that you can start to find appropriate support strategies and appropriate changes and appropriate environmental changes. And for me, my communication plan, which was labelled a management plan, which I find offensive, so I call it a communication plan. The coaches had to do two things, which was don't ask me open-ended questions about my feelings. I do have feelings, I just find it hard to talk about them, and just make sure I got the right message from a briefing, because I do think on a different level. But I think that's a good thing sometimes. And then the nutritionist just had to ensure that there was bland food available on training camp or at the training centre. And those changes made such a huge difference to, I'd say, my anxiety, but it came from not having to, it's just like alleviating one level of processing.
Yeah,
because
that executive function freeing up.
As we know, if you're an autistic person or a neurodivergent person living in and working in, existing in a structure that is designed for a different neurotype, you have to do gymnastics every day, mental gymnastics. So it was just alleviating a couple of the backflips I was having to do, and that freed up so much of my energy to put into my performance. And a year down the line, I was 17 seconds faster, and I was PBing for the first time. And to be fair, I had titrated off all of the medication. That really helped. But it just shows you, and it's why I'm so passionate about doing what I'm doing. It just shows you that being able, having help to communicate your differences can then give people the knowledge and the information that they need to make the changes. And yes, there will be some people that still say, I'm not doing that, that's preferential treatment, but it's probably because they don't really get it. They don't get that it's not a choice, it's a different neurotype. And I think the more we can embed that kind of thinking, that okay, everyone does start from a different baseline, we have created a system that suits one, let's widen that system to suit all. I think the more that we start to embed that into everyday practice in sport, in business, the less you'll see people burning out, the less mental health difficulties you'll see, the less conflict, the less like behavior issues. It's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. That's what motivates me. But if I ever do talk to high performance sport, so, you know, like the cutthroat coaches who you say it's the right thing to do, they're like, I don't give a like, it will benefit performance. Like I said, some of the world's greatest athletes are neurodivergent, because you have to be a bit different, you have to be a bit unhinged to do amazing things, be an athlete. So it is worth changing your processes a little bit, and almost I see it as, for me, the ideal approach would be, at least in sport, maybe you can't do this in business, but maybe you can. At least in sport, I would, if I was a coach, I would just look at the athlete in front of me and I would move to them and I would work with them Whereas at the moment, it's very much you have a coach and a coaching philosophy, you have a number of athletes in front of you, and you say, okay, which one of you can move to me? Which one of you can fit into what I think and I do? And then those that don't, they just drop out of the team straight away. Or those that, like me, are maybe just crazy enough to destroy yourself to get there, will get there, but they will destroy yourself to get there. Like, so yeah, I think it's that shift of and that all comes from understanding
old school coaching versus the more modern take on professional coaching. And actually, it's about finding out your drivers, your goals, your aspirations, and your willingness to achieve those things.
Yeah.
So, and for me, that is all about being person-centered. Because if you're person-centered with the whole team, then you're getting the best out of everybody on the team.
Yeah.
If you're saying this is my way and it's my way or the highway, then you're only going to get what people want to give you.
Yeah, and on top of that, you say like you're going to get the best out of the whole team. And again, I always think about the cutthroat coaches, because that was what I lived for 10 years. I lived could I possibly try this? No. Could I do? No, you have to conform. And another thing that I say as well as like the carrot of some of the best athletes will be neurodivergent is these people will be in your team regardless. At least 1/5 of your team will be neurodivergent. And at the moment, they'll be expending energy behind the scenes, hiding their differences for shame, probably feeling a bit less confident, doing the kind of internal gymnastics because they're not having any of their needs met. And they're still in your team, earning their place and keeping their place. Imagine if you made it acceptable to disclose, to give them a little bit of help that they need, so that they can then take their strengths and run with them. Like, those people that are already here would be performing even better and contributing
10%.
And contributing to the team more, and also not feeling so frustrated and begrudging. Like, sometimes I was a bad teammate from the outside, because I remember I was struggling so much internally, and I was like, why won't somebody give me a break? Just give me something. And then when you see somebody else getting treated well, or having a complaint and having it listened to, or like wanting to do something differently, and then that's allowed because they talk the right talk, or because they fit a certain mold. Like, it's like your heart's being ripped out, and then I'm expected to kind of like be in a room with this person and be in a boat with them and be like all happy and friendly, when all I want is like even a semblance of how they're being treated. So I think that's another layer again, is that team. Like, there's so much power in I always think that when people are complaining, you see a lot of this in teams, when people are complaining about other people getting preferential treatment, it's usually because they need something themselves and they're not getting it, and they don't know how to communicate that. But yeah, there are so many layers to this, that I think just being a bit more person-centered can improve so many aspects. But it does take time, and it takes everyone understanding and buying in. And like I said, this performance director was kind of employed to try and change the culture. He had 2 years, because he came in, or 1.5 years, came in partway through the Olympiad, and then had COVID in that time, and then the Olympics was delayed, and then because we didn't medal as much as we should have done at the Olympics, he was let go. And it's kind of gone all the way back to that really hard down the line, cutting off anybody who doesn't fit the mold. And that's hard to see, and it's part of why I kind of stepped away, because I was like, I'm not going back. I just got free of the box, and then suddenly the box was like encompassing me again, and I was like, no, I'm not going backwards. So I kind of left. I was like, I'm gonna have to kind of go above and try and change this from below, because like when you're trying to change it from within, it's so hard. The glass ceiling is so thick. But yeah, it's just an example of somewhere along the line, somebody or a number of people from above prioritized box ticking. You know, I don't know how it came across on the okay, we didn't get the medals, that approach didn't work. Not really seeing the context, not seeing the people, not seeing the fact that he had 2 years, there was COVID, got used as a scapegoat. So unless we start, that's what I'm saying, is that kind of change, it takes guts at a very high level. And I don't know if a lot of people have that.
Well, and you would have thought that given the results that you ended with, would have been an opportunity for a catalyst to say, what we have been doing hasn't worked. But they were looking in the wrong time box. You're looking at a guy that had a year or two to change the world of professional rowing that's 200 years old.
Yeah.
So actually, what you need to do is actually give some more time and effort into that, and see what the future holds.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, it will. They've gone back to sort of. Oh, I feel like I'm getting real personal here. I need to tread carefully. It's gone back to that kind of one size fits all, more is more kind of very narrow mold again. And you will get results from that, because you'll always have good athletes that do fit into that mold. And if it's easier, it's tried and tested, it will work to a degree. But what people won't see from the outside, or won't appreciate or respect, is, for instance, the number of rib injuries, the number of people falling out, the number of people having a terrible time, getting chewed up, spat out, the fact that there's no diversity. That, I mean, you'll have the kind of token gay person, you'll have the token
not white person.
not white person. No, actually, you don't actually have that. That doesn't exist yet. You'll have the token sign of like.
Well, you do at collegiate level.
In America?
No, here. The university rowing teams have some non-white people.
But are you talking about the one person in the Oxford and Cambridge boat race that everyone?
Look! Out of 10 people, we only need 1.5 of them to be not white.
Yeah, but that's not the number.
I know. It's like 2 in 100. I'm getting.
Okay, yeah. And like 70% of people, I think, of athletes on the Great Britain team, not rowing team that went to Tokyo Olympics, came from private school background.
Yeah.
Like, the diversity is appalling, and if you have that one size fits all mold, it's not going to improve, because I'm sorry, but people from deprived backgrounds come with trauma. Like, people from deprived backgrounds come with questions because they don't know how it's done. They come with social awkwardness because they don't know how to talk the talk because they weren't taught it. So, I feel like I've said enough on this subject because I don't want to sound like that.
So what,
kind of vigilante. But
what caused you to start neurodiverse sport rather than your own training organization to coach differently and then create better athletes than?
Because that's not going to make change on a huge scale. Like, I want to make change on a huge scale, and I also am very justice driven, and
you'd also fallen out of love with the sport. So why would you? I
had fallen out of love with the sport, yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I want to help people. I want to help people. I'm not driven massively by money. it's the right thing to do. It needed to happen, and I shoot myself in the foot with this characteristic, but because I do end up like, you know, I've just done website rewrites, which will be up soon, and that was 4 days, and you know, my husband tried to tear me away from them, and it's all through the weekend and everything. And I've got 2 conferences today. I'm leaving. I've got them tomorrow and the next day. I don't get paid for that. I'm doing it because it's exhausting me. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do, because you have to have, nothing will change if you don't have some weird autistic people who are doing the right thing. I keep saying autistic, but it could be neurodivergent, because I swear the lines are so blurred. Like
Just
you said earlier,
weird people doing shit.
You asked me if I had ADHD, and I was like, oh, I've got a lot of traits of ADHD, yeah. But like, yes, I don't know. It's like, I feel I have to do it. I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do it. There would be no point. I can't exist in a world. I sat by and saw it happen, and it ground me down, and I didn't let it. I had no. I was like, had no power for 10 years. I came into the team like such a bullshit sort of like kind of state school kid. I remember I used to be like, my coach used to tell me, think of someone you hate on your foot plate and just like push into it. Like, I was that kid. I was like, yeah, all you posh kids can get. But like, you know, after a few years, it had all gone. But in my heart of hearts, now I've kind of moved away from that system. I no longer I'm no longer, my hands are no longer tied. I'm like, it's coming back. And I think in my heart of hearts, I'm very justice driven, social, ethical, moral. I've seen too many very, very unfair things in my time in elite sport. It's kind of.
I was once told.
I keep having to stop myself.
No, yeah. This is political correctness, because we want to make sure that we're not upsetting people.
Yeah.
You know, this is why I rebranded myself this summer into the anti-hero, because I was saying stuff that people agreed with but didn't want to say. And you know, it's not about personal attacks. It's about standing up for what we think's right.
Yeah, 100%.
And you know, I was told once that parity isn't fairness, and I was like, well, I think it is. So what we really want is for everybody's lived experience to be of a decent standard, and those people who need support are supported.
Yeah.
Now, to me, you could argue that that was equity. You know, everybody has the fair opportunity and the support to use and utilize those opportunities. Now, when you've got some individuals who are, you know, the teacher's pet, who gets, you know, the first dibs of all of the cool stuff, gets a pay rise every time they ask for one, gets the team members that they need when they're understaffed, you know, goes to dinner with the directors regularly, and can never put a foot wrong even when they make a mistake. And you've got somebody who works their socks off and never gets any recognition, but always gets picked on for being the outspoken one. You could see why one of them wanted parity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always the one who's lower down the ladder that asks for it. It's never somebody at the top going, oh, this is so unfair.
Yeah.
No, because you're privileged enough to have all of the support you want.
Yeah. And yeah, you don't want to disrupt the status quo because the status quo works for you.
Yeah. You're having your cake and eating it.
Yeah.
Where some people are making your cake.
But I would say that I'm now a person who is not at the bottom, but I'm determined that as high as I get in terms of, you know, when you're in demand, people want you. They want you to be places. They want you to talk. They want to put you on a pedestal. But I'm determined that no matter how in demand I get, I maintain my morals, because that's what I could not live with myself if I didn't have them. And I always go back to that. And so I always try and stay in touch with the blog and the actual athletes and the neurodivergent athletes. I always try and keep talking to them, because that's why I'm doing it. If they didn't exist, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. I genuinely would go and find an island to live on.
Shut the world out.
And I would, and just live there with my books. I'm always on Rightmove, looking at island houses, or somewhere in the Brecon Beacons, or in Scotland or Ireland. But
I've got an affinity with Scotland. I was on recording Jackie's episode this morning, talking about why she's moved to Israel. And since coming back from Scotland, my wife is now like, there's an island for sale in Scotland. It's only 2 million quid. I was like, we don't need in Scotland. Anyway, let's not.
I'm with you.
It's like, look, it's 200 hectares. I don't even know how big a hectare is, but we should go move on to an island. I was like, where's the island? West Coast. So that's where the storms are. Okay, maybe we should live on an island.
Yeah.
But no, I'm 100% with you. The only reason that I interact with humans is because I need to earn money.
Yeah. I do like humans.
Well, when they treat you equitably.
Yeah. And that's why I haven't moved away yet, because I know that there are a lot of humans that need help, and I have the power to do that, so I should well do it, because I'm very lucky. I'm in the top 1%, the privilege in the world, so use your privilege.
That is a fantastic way to end, with 2 minutes to spare before Caragh runs away and does something else. But yeah, it's been a brilliant hour or so having a chat after all of the technical issues that none of our people will know about.
No, sorry. It was all me.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was all you. I think that the garden, the Wi-Fi, the camera on the wrong setting. It all has its own part.
It was the garden, the Wi-Fi, and the camera. It wasn't me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
It's not your responsibility to get on early and make sure that everything works before we start recording.
Oh, burn!
Said with love and jest.
It's fine, I deserve it. And I will take that on board and not change for the future.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for coming on and run away for this afternoon.
All right. Thank you so much.